having me. It's been a long time since I've been out here. I'm still doing the street ministry. We started it in July of 1999. So I have been walking the streets of Harrisburg from 10, 11 at night till 3, 4 in the morning for the last 20 years. And it is absolutely amazing what you see out at that time of night. I have dealt with children as young as 2 and 3 just wandering the streets that got out of their house. I have dealt with prostitutes, which is mainly the reason I was sent out there in the first place. But I also deal with the homeless or anyone who's on the street during those hours that need a friend, that need a listening ear and a caring heart. That's what I take with me. Besides Jesus, He is always there with me. When anyone asks who goes with me on the streets, it's me and Jesus. I've had a lot of people ask me about going out, and I tell them that if they want to do that, they have to learn to get to be known by the street people, because I will not vouch for anyone I don't really know. Because what happens on the street stays on the street. I do have friends, if I do know of a situation where I feel a child is in danger, I will have that particular person report them to children and youth. I will have the police notified if I know of something that's happening, but it doesn't come directly from me. Snitches don't last too long on the street. I live in their world. My church is their world. I step outside my car and I am accepted as one of them. It's been tough. I've had some broken bones and I've had a gun pointed at me, but it's also been very rewarding. I have seen young girls give their life to Christ and get off the streets as a prostitute. I've seen young homosexual men change their lives from living on the streets to having a job and a place to live. God has put me in places that I never thought I would ever be, especially now at my age. Someone asked me earlier today when I was planning on giving it up. And it's like when I can no longer do it. When God finally says, well done, you can retire now, that's probably when I will. I thought for a while that might have happened because I've been through a bout of cancer. I was in intensive care for a week for pancreatitis. They weren't sure I was going to make it. I kept telling God, hey, Lord, my bags are packed, I'm ready to come home. But if you have something else I haven't done yet, well, here I am. Well, here I am. So I'm not exactly sure what He wants me to do yet before I can retire, but I'm sure He'll show me. There are so many hurting people out there. And I want to thank everyone who donated shampoo and body wash. I used to just collect soap, and I still do take bars of soap, but a lot of the people prefer, particularly the homeless people, it's easier to keep a bottle in their backpack than if they wash their hands with a cake of soap. What do you do with a wet cake of soap that doesn't mess up everything else? So they kind of learn to like the liquid stuff. Some of them just have little bottles, and they'll ask me if I have any that I can refill them. So I usually have a bottle that I can pour into theirs, and so they still have some. I have a lot of seniors now that I'm not officially tied to one area in Harrisburg. I now work not only the uptown, midtown area, but I have ventured out on the hill. It's really different out there. Language is a problem out there because a lot of people speak Spanish. It's kind of like going into a foreign country. I picked up some Spanish words, but not that much, but most of them there who know me and know what I do, they pretty much find a way to tell me, even if it's really broken English, what they need or what's wrong. so far God hasn't left language be a barrier. My heart goes out to the children because they didn't ask to be in the situation they're in. I've been to baptisms of children that I have saved from the streets, got their parents away, which has been really awesome. I've been to the funeral of a child who was only a couple months old that couldn't survive, but it was enough that it triggered his mom to get help. I watched as a young girl was sworn into the military because she decided that was her only chance to get off the streets and have a life. And I was telling the first church that I got a note from her the other day. She's in Germany now, and she's made Master Sergeant, which is really awesome for her. And she's thinking about making the military her career. So, you know, from prostitute to Master Sergeant, that's a pretty good feat. And she attends church every Sunday when she's not on duty. And she's really grateful for the chance that she got. And she just wanted to let me know that she's doing good. And she's met a young man, but she's still not sure what she's going to do where that's concerned. But she's thinking of making the military her career. So, well, good for you. So she said, in 20 years I can be out, and I can still get a job and have a life. So I told her to think about it, pray about it, and I'm sure God will give her the right decision. But I was really impressed when I heard she got a promotion and stuff. That was really neat. As I can remember standing there when she was being sworn in and thought she'd never make it. But God works in very mysterious ways. It's not safe out there anymore. I'm very glad that Jesus stays right by my side, because in the uptown area alone, where they closed the Camp Curtin Church, there's been 5 shootings in the last couple of months right around the church in broad daylight. People ask me how I can go out at night. Well, you know, I know that most of the people that are out there at that hour, so that's not a problem, but it ain't much difference. They're shooting in broad daylight now. You know, going into the city of Harrisburg sometimes is like going into a war zone. You really got to be careful. I deal with the homeless. I've helped a couple of them who got displaced. I guess that's a good word for it. There was a homeless camp on Cameron Street. There's a bunch of old abandoned warehouses in the Cameron Street area, corridor. They've been empty for years. Well, you would assume they have been empty for years. But actually inside those old broken down buildings is a sea of tents where people have been living. They pitched their tents inside the building. Number one, the building hasn't been used for years, and number two, it does kind of protect them from the elements. I mean, their windows are broken and whatever, so it's not a heated building. But they each have their own little space, and they live as a community. Well, they found out a little while ago the building was sold, and they were told they had to get out. So some of them went to other camps, some of them have tried to get housing, and some of them have actually gone for rehab, which is really great. But I have worked with some of them. The hardest thing for me, like I said, my heart goes out to the kids. And it really makes it tough for me because of all these predators that are out there. Because in the summertime, I used to love to do street corner vacation Bible schools. I would take my truck in town, and instead of going out that night, I would park my truck on a corner where there was a lot of kids playing on the streets and whatever, and I'd open up the back doors and I'd play some happening music, and I would sit down and either play with one of my puppets, or I would start doing balloon animals, and the next thing I know is all the kids were gathered around my truck. Which is great, because I could then play with the kids and give them a message at the same time. But I gotta really be careful today, because, you know, one wrong move and the cops would be there telling me I'm a predator. I've been questioned by the police why I'm out that time of night, but I've always showed them my credentials and they pretty much leave me alone. But there are children out there that are just hungry for someone to talk to, someone to tell them about Jesus. And I have told several children, you know, there's churches in your neighborhood. Yeah, but mommy won't get up and take me. Well, I'll tell you what. You go into church and you tell somebody you want to come to their Sunday school. And I said, if they tell you you can't come without your mommy and daddy, you let me know what church it is and I'm going to pay them a visit. I mean, I realize there are child sanctuary laws and all that crap, but I make it plain that if a child comes into the church, he's there because he don't have a home life. And I'm sure there are plenty of folks in that church that would help him grow and learn about Jesus and learn the good moral values he should have that he's not going to get from the streets. I've only ever had to visit one church. The deacon told the young kid he couldn't come in and couldn't go to church because he didn't have his mom and dad. And he was only a little fellow, he was about this tall, he was about 6 years old. And he wanted to know about Jesus. And the church on his street corner wouldn't let him in. And he came back and told me. He said, Miss Pat, they won't let me go there. Come on, we're going to pay the preacher talking to. So I went and talked to him, and I told him the situation, and I told him what it was. That little boy is now a lot older, and he now is a member of that church. And he's bringing in some of his friends that are now members of that church. So, you know, it's really tough for them. Especially when mom is drunk and dad's nowhere around. A lot of times mom's high on crack. And even if she's not and she's just a single mom and working 2 jobs, she don't really have time to raise her kid right. To get up and do the things she should do. She sends him off to school and hopes the school teaches him. That's it. So I try to intervene when I can. I try to be there for the kids. And now I find myself being there for a lot of elderly people. I have given out some stuff one day, and this little old lady was sitting on her porch, and she asked me if she saw I'd given this lady some soap. And she says, you wouldn't happen to have an extra bar of that, would you? And I said, sure. So all I did was give her, all I had with me was a 2-pack. And normally for the street people, I give them 1 bar at a time. But I just gave her both bars of soap. I hadn't broken them apart. And she stood there and cried because nobody had ever done that for her. She'd been a week without taking a bath, a real bath, because she didn't have any soap. She was using a little tiny sliver just to try to do things. She couldn't afford it, and her food, and her rent, and her taxes, or whatever. She said, things just came up this month, I couldn't afford it. And she said, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I couldn't believe that she was so touched and so happy to get a lousy bar of soap that we all take for granted. And it's like, sometimes God kind of kicks me in the butt and makes me open my eyes and look a little closer. Because sometimes I think I've seen it all. But there are times that it's just overwhelming. And God put us all here, not necessarily to walk the streets like I do. I have no idea why that was an assignment given to me. But I'm willing to do whatever it is God wants me to do. But He calls all of us to help somebody, to help people. And you have a very wonderful, outgoing ministry here, and I really thank you for that, because there are places where this doesn't exist. And God calls us all to help everybody, irregardless of race, color, or creed. And I think our country needs to get back to where we are all brothers and sisters, outside this door as well as inside. Thank you.
questions for Pat? Okay, let us stand then and